Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the live panel where will finance, analytics, and operations take me. Now, before we start, the video recording of the following segment is carried out in compliance with the IMDA Phase 3 guidelines, in which the unmasking dispensations are kept to a fixed cast of not more than 10 on-screen talent performance at any given time. Now, we are now live at the atrium of our very own business building. Excited to bring you our NUS BIZ e-open house. I'm Sing Yu, a Year 4 BBA student specializing in finance and marketing. With me in this session, I have these amazing panelists to share with you more on finance, analytics, and operations. They are Associate Professor Yeo Wee Yong from the Department of Finance, Assistant Professor Hu Zhen Yu from the Department of Analytics and Operations, Mr. Clarence Ong, Assistant Senior Manager from the BIZ Career Service, and Hansel Goh, a BBA Year 4 student. Do keep your questions coming in on our Facebook Live comment section, and we will do our very best to answer as many as we can. Now, to start off, let me ask a few questions to the panelists. First, to Professor Yeo. So, as a finance professor, what kind of roles or prospects can our NUS finance graduate look forward to post-graduation?
Well, Singapore is a financial hub, right? So, finance job is in great abundance. We have commercial banks, we have investment banks, we have insurance companies, pension funds, private equity, hedge funds, so on and so forth. Even just for commercial banks, you have front office, back office, risk management, trading, wealth management, private banking, and not to mention every company will need to have a finance department. So jobs are in abundance. So yeah, that's what we wanted to do. I mean, we will prep the students. We are always looking at our offerings, so we track the market, and whatever the market needs is what we furnish our students to do.
Yes, and as a finance graduate, soon-to-be graduate myself, I can definitely testimony to that, which is that we really do have a lot of opportunities as finance. You're not limited to only within companies, but also within, in the banking sector or be it the asset management sector. So now let me move on to Prof. Hu. So a lot of people have been asking this: what is the difference between business analytics offered in NUS Business as compared to that at computing?
Okay, I really can't speak for what computing side does, but I can share with you about what expertise we have at the business school. Okay, so for the analytics, well, there are many common areas in the analytics. For example, we need to deal with data. We need to learn programming languages in assisting us to handle the data, right? We teach that here as well. That's the fundamental. But at the same time, I think our department has a lot of focus or expertise in, the more prescriptive side. After you get the insights from the data, how should you use these insights to assist with your decision-making process? And those decision-making process, as we focus, is more in the business context, such as operations and even finance and marketing. And there are many contextual areas that we focus on where you can apply these insights you obtain from the data. That's basically, in my opinion, could be the difference.
Yeah, thanks, Prof. Hu. And definitely, and adding on to Prof. Hu's point, I think it also depends on what kind of person you are. Because if you are someone who's very technical and you really enjoy, a lot of computer jargons, then maybe, business analytics, which is a lot more deep into coding, would be more for you. But if you're more interested in knowing how, business analytics comes into play, more of like the market, with regards to the market, how companies really deal with data, then business maybe, business analytics in business may be more suited for you. So moving on to Mr. Ong. So in NUS, business school is unique in that we have our own career services office right here in the Mokhtar Riley building. So in that, what kind of, value do you add to our students, and what kind of edge do you give to us business students?
Well, I think the part I really like about what I'm doing is that actually I'm facing my corporate partners as well as looking after our students at the same time. Okay, so what we do is that we reach out very actively to find out on the opportunity, as well as what are the skill set that the corporate partners require of our students. And with this first-hand information, we also work very closely with our academic staff, and then we bring this knowledge and information to our students. I would say that we try to aim for accuracy, timeliness, and most importantly also to familiarize our students with the latest selection processes. And hopefully this gives our students and perhaps the audience an edge when they come into our business school.
Yeah. And like what Mr. Ong said, I've also experienced that for myself, where a lot of times where we are a bit unsure about what we want to do post graduation, we can really just come down to the career office. Definitely now with COVID, we have to set up an appointment time slot and make sure that we adhere to certain regulations. But it is really a space where we can come down and talk to the career guidance officers about what would be best suited for us and where we can go moving forward. Now we've heard a bit about the academics and the work side. Maybe you want to hear more from Hansel about student life. So business students, we've been told that we hustle very hard. So Hansel, do you agree with that statement? And how do you balance between hustling and having your own life and your own personality?
Right. So I definitely have to agree with the point that we have been hustling since year 1 to year 3. So it is all about trying to understand what you want at the end of your university experience. So a lot of students, they actually spend a bulk of their time early in their years trying to build up towards that year 3 goal, where they're going for certain internships or they're going to do their own side businesses or whatsoever. And of course, there's a lot of hard work that comes in the start. So how I would say we have balance between these two different things of hustling and having a life would be, you should be finding friends who have very similar interests to you, right? So people who have similar interests are going to be grouped together, and then this becomes a very enjoyable experience itself on its own. And of course, you can't be working 24/7 a week. People with similar interests tend to have similar hobbies as well. You can always arrange things on a weekend. For example, for myself, I do play tennis on a regular basis, about twice a week. I do go to the gym as well, just to de-stress. And when you come back on the weekday from Monday to Friday, you get back on track and you start working towards your goals as a business student again. So that is how I think you balance between work and play, by incorporating play into your work by having a good social support circle.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Hansel said, because similarly, like myself, I have to agree that we hustle very hard, but at the same time, there's this element that we really balance work life in that we prioritize what we want. So let's say if in a certain semester you are really garnering for some internship, then that would be your focus for that semester. But in other semesters, we go on exchange, so that will be a semester where we let loose and we really just have fun. So it depends on your priorities and what you set out to do at different times of your time here in NUS Business School. So moving back to Prof. Yeo, a finance-related question. So finance has been a very long-standing specialization here in NUS Business School. And like you said earlier, finance is everywhere in Singapore. But that being said, there's also this up-and-coming trend of Fintech. So finance and tech coming together in play. So how has that been maybe incorporated, or how have you guys, evolved and made our module and our lessons that we learn more relevant in today's world?
Yeah, I think Fintech is something that we cannot ignore. So I told my students, if you go for job interview this day, you'll definitely be asked something about Fintech. So we have offered things such as a full Fintech module, and we have also weaved Fintech into a lot of our modules as well. It may not be a standalone, but almost every module will talk about Fintech. I teach the course on financial markets, and I make the student do a project on Fintech, do a project on crypto, and then we discuss, we teach one another, so that we know what is happening out there. So I told my students, definitely, once you go out into the industry today, you cannot run away from Fintech. Fintech is there, so you have to be well-versed with what Fintech is doing. So we have standalone module on Fintech, and it's with inside a lot of our modules as well.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Yeo. And that's especially true too, because for myself, I actually took two Fintech modules last semester, and it's really very relevant to what's going on in the world now. We do projects and we really dive deep into some of the issues where we are more, interested in. And I would say business school, especially our modules, gives us a lot of realm for us to explore with regards to projects on what exactly we want to do. So we are not very limited, to what the module outline is, and we have a lot of freedom. And with that, let's move on to analytics and operations. So in comparison to finance, analytics and operations is actually a relatively new specialization. So just wondering, can you share a bit about the motivations behind having this, specialization in place recently?
Okay, so I think one of the major driving force of this area is, the prevalence of the data that's becoming nowadays. Okay, it's really new. Okay, originally the data is already there. A lot of companies are already using some of the techniques we had developed before. But I think more recently with the internet and so on, I think a lot of the new companies, they are catching up. For example, Grab Uber, all these companies, they are very data and technology intensive. And not only with these high-tech companies, even some, for example, just like the restaurant here, Spread, they may face some data-driven type of problems as well. For example, how many, food material they should prepare, before the day starts, and they need to predict what are the demand coming customer flows, and they can collect the data to help them assist in all these decisions. And that's, I think, one of the reasons that this area may be growing.
Okay, thank you. And just taking a pause from all these questions, I'll look at the Facebook Live questions. So some people have been asking whether business and accountancy students actually take the same modules or classes in year one. So the answer to that is we have some similar core modules that we do take together in year one, but at the same time, accountancy students, they have their own special modules that they also have to clear in year one. So it's kind of like a mix between some courses that we do take together and some others that are more accountancy specific. And another question has been asking on how or why NUS BBA has an additional year as compared to NTU Business School with 3 years. So to answer that question, I think it depends, you have to look at it in that, will you want to rush your entire degree packed into that 3 years? It is possible, which is what, NTU Business School drives with people who, they really want to, finish their degree fast and then step out in the workplace. But I would feel that in NUS BBA, it is a more relaxed pace where you actually get to, like what Hansel said, we get to combine a bit of work and play. So there are semesters where we do, we go on exchange and it doesn't become as packed. And then, maybe in some semesters you want to take up a new entrepreneurship role, like you want to start a business. So that in itself, our 4 years program actually gives you a lot of leeway to do that instead of being worried whether you can finish your degree in 3 years. So that I would say would be the major difference. So moving on, maybe move on to Mr. Ong. What are some interesting stories that you have heard from students that come to you when they ask for guidance, or what are some interesting occurrences that you have had with the students that you may want to share with the public today?
Well, I do not know whether I should term it as interesting. I mean, especially for the junior students, a lot of times they will come here and say that the most common word we hear is I don't know what to do, or I don't know what I want to do. Well, I would say that that is nothing to be afraid of. In fact, that is a very common process. I think most importantly is we have to familiarize our students with the process of getting information, or perhaps having that attitude of curiosity, knowing what you know, knowing what you don't know, and be very interested to go out to find out more about the industry and to speak with people, to network with our corporate partners, so that this allows them to better understand what they can do and what they're willing to learn, and most probably from there, from year 2 to graduation years, right, then they can basically pop up something that might be of their interest, and hopefully by then we will hear less of I do not know.
Yeah, I definitely agree as well, because that was my major question that I had when I came to NUS BIZ. So what am I going to do, right? Because there's so many specializations. But as what Mr. Ong said, the career office is always there for you. They have, specific questions that they kind of line out for you, where you slowly begin to discover more about yourself. So then moving on to Hansel then. So, a lot, like as we previously said, students love to, hustle a lot in business school. In that sense, can you name maybe one of your most interesting, let's say, project, be it in school or like in your internships that you may want to share?
So maybe for internships, I can't really share so much for the projects because that's slightly confidential, right? But the most interesting project maybe within school would be something that I've been working on last week. It always gets better every year. Right now you're year 4, you are doing the best project you can. And when it comes to year 4 on your honors program modules, you get a lot of flexibility to decide what you actually want to do. So you set the research question, you answer the research question, you basically research whatever you're keen in. And actually I'm doing the presentation in about 20 minutes time because I'm having class right now. So I was given some time to step out of class to give this, to share with you guys. So the project in sum, it's basically my team, we were interested in looking at foreign exchange market. So we are thinking whether we could monetize the foreign exchange market. So whatever the professors have mentioned here comes extremely applicable within this project, because we know that foreign exchange tends to show some forms of mean reverting patterns given a long enough time horizon. So how then can we come up with a fair value model to test these assumptions and then monetize it, right? So we've done most of the work. We got the data from Bloomberg, and then we back tested the trading strategy in data in Python. So with that, we then came up with certain results that are quite interesting. And also this project is also scalable in a sense where it is not everything is going to be hard coded. There are certain things that you can adjust. For example, the look back window, what you are referencing the currencies to, the types of currencies that are in your universe. So when you come to NUS Business School, you're going to be given all these skill sets in the early years, from year 1 to year 3. And with these skill sets, you slowly accumulate it up to, say, your internships or to a professional job in the future. And that is the role of an analyst when you move out to the workplace, where you're able to combine both theory as well as the technical skills of, like, say, statistics or implementing an idea or prototype with using different scripting languages that we are taught here in business school, since Python is something that is compulsory for most students who are coming in at least at their second year of university. So I think that this program really gears you towards for the future, say in banking, data analytics, or any other area of interest which requires some solving of some business problem.
Yeah. So like Hunter shared, it's really up to you to think of a project and a topic that you really like. And like what he shared, I actually thought of another of my project during my last semester, where it's not so much about scripting or coding, but because it was a fintech project, so we actually came together as a team and come up with like an app that we could actually help to better, with some element of fintech that's currently in place. So what we actually did was to come up with an app which has got to do with green tokens, so something to do with like green bonding and investing. So that in itself, is the realm of like topics that you can actually work on in your projects. So moving back to Prof. Yo. So what if I'm a very interested student in finance and the banking world, but I'm actually not good in math? Would that be hindering me on taking this specialization?
Well, math is a prerequisite. You need to have some math knowledge, but for most of the modules, the math that you need is not very high-powered kind of math. In my course, for example, I told students, as long as you know how to add, minus, divide, multiply, you are fine. The level of math is not very high-powered, but the concept behind is something that may set a student apart from other students. So you need to understand the concept behind. The math itself is not very tedious. There are some modules, of course, the maths are very, very tedious. For example, options and futures, investment, for example, all those pricing models may be a little bit intense. But for most of the modules, I think you should be able to handle. But the concept behind will be more important than the mathematical skills. You have people who are very, very good in math but not doing well because they just cannot understand the concept behind how things come together, how things fit together. So that is very important as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Prof. Yo. And with regards to that, I think it's also because we have a lot of modules that we can actually choose from the finance specialization. So if you are someone that's more interested in the qualitative side of finance, you have modules such as financial markets and fintech that's less numbers and like less of like actually doing the modeling. So that would really help you if you are looking for that. And maybe one of the last few questions to Prof. Wu from BA is that, so like what I asked Prof. Yo earlier, so operations BA is something that is very coding based and like, very about statistics. So if I'm someone that has no prior knowledge in coding, would I face a lot of trouble doing this specialization?
Well, I think we have, it's not a prerequisite per se, because we have, I think from year 1, we start with spreadsheet modeling courses, which is kind of a warm-up. There's not a lot of coding, but there is some coding logic behind it to help you first get familiar with some basic models, basic statistics, and basic optimization stuff. And then I think after you have took that course, then we move on. I think in year 2, we have this coding in R and coding in Python courses where you get yourself familiar with the coding stuff. So I guess it's a gradual process. So I believe as long as you learn hard, I think there should be no problem in mastering all this. I think nowadays it's really like an English language. A lot of people are expected to learn or to master at least some of the coding language as well.
I think the main idea here is that as long as you're interested in this and you're willing to work hard, then nothing is like impossible, right? And just to close off today's session, maybe to Mr. Ong or Hansel, you all want to give any quick advice to any incoming students to NUS Business School? Mr. Ong.
Well, maybe allow me to start first. So what we have seen in the job market is actually when they look at our graduate and they look at our penultimate year student, the technical knowledge is taken as a given. So while they're doing finance or how to incorporate Python or R programming into the investment or their banking operation, it is increasingly taken as a given by our corporate partners. So what our partners are increasingly valuing at this moment is a form of a diverse experience. So I would strongly urge that for our prospective students and our current students that have some interest in, for example, voluntary work, music, sports, or areas like that, which basically can help to evaluate or say have a diverse lifestyle, so that you can add value to your lifestyle as well as to the company that you're joining.
Okay, and Hansel, any quick words from you?
I'll just summarize things. So maybe 3 pieces of advice that you should take if you are heading into university or whatsoever is, first of all, you should understand yourself well. You should know what you like, what you're good at, and and the intersection between this is what you're gonna do to value add in the future, right? That's the first point of advice. The second one is to always constantly innovate, in the sense where you need to be innovating new methods of doing things. It could be studying. So previous methods of rote learning wouldn't be work that you do in junior college or anywhere else wouldn't work in the current university setting. So always innovate new ways to go about doing new things and try to set the trail for that. The last piece of advice is maybe don't always try to be the smartest person in the room. So if you are the smartest person in the room, it's definitely an indicator that you should be moving on to a different group where you can learn from others. So there always has to be people who are challenging your views, and you must be able to kind of validate them so you can kind of minimize the error that you have, right? So you improve and you grow as a person overall in the long run.
Yeah, thanks Hansel. And time is catching up on us. Unfortunately, that's as much as we can cover in today's session. But not to worry, we have several more live events lined up. So stay tuned for our next session that's starting in 10 minutes. Especially for those of you who ask a lot of questions on accountancy, the next session will be perfect for you. So thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you so much to our panelists, and we hope to see you online again later.